So one of my specialties is I recently had a woman come to me that said, Dale, um, I don't even know how to put money in my gas. Like, I don't even know where the money's going to come from to put money in my gas tank. I said, okay, let's work on financial flow. You've got some blocks around money.
Hello, family. Welcome back to the Explore the Extraordinary podcast. My name's Betty, and today I'm joined by Dale. And Dale is a certified emotion code practitioner. He is the host of the Soul Inspire TV channel on YouTube. He's an author, a speaker, a coach, and I'm really excited to get an opportunity to connect with you today. And thank you so much for your willingness to serve our community at IANDS. I'm going to toss it right over to you.
Thanks, Betty. I really appreciate this opportunity to be on your show. I really admire what you're doing with your platform, with the IANDS community. It's absolutely beautiful to share this light and love in the world. And I'm honored to be able to participate, even in a small way if I can. I'm just so honored because this world really needs this platform. So, how can I say a little bit about my background, my spiritual background? I was raised an evangelical Christian. I no longer identify as that, but that is how I was raised. Let's see, from the age of, my mother and my father were not married, and back in 1971, that was seen as kind of a disgrace. So my mother had to travel out of her province to come out of Ontario, Canada, to go to Manitoba, probably because it was a big shame to give birth to me. I don't know. She had to travel. My father stayed behind. She gave birth to me in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And then I was maybe in her arms for a few minutes, and then I was immediately put into foster care for the first 7 weeks of my life. So you can imagine some abandonment issues came up there. Let's see. But I was really fortunate to be adopted into a very loving home, given lots of love and support. And it was from there that I was introduced to the Christian religion. Now, I was just this very wide open and accepting person, so I just accepted everything. And while there are some very beautiful aspects of the Christian faith, and I have the utmost respect for my parents, and I have the utmost respect for people that are born again Christians, I have come to have a set of experiences that have kind of led me away from that and more into a spiritual type of belief system where I accept all religions as and all experiences that eventually lead back to the divine. And I think my work kind of reflects that now because I host the Soul Inspire podcast. You might have seen it on YouTube, where I interview people, even people that are in the IANDS community. And I've had the pleasure of interviewing Betty, which was wonderful, where I interview people that have had near-death experiences and spiritually transformative experiences, and people that are, life coaches and authors and people that just want to spread love and light in this world. So I'm really honored with that. But getting back to my growing up period. So let's see. I basically, yeah, I've always been a very open and accepting person. And when I was a child, I never really questioned anything. And my parents were loving. So of course I accepted everything that they well-intentionedly taught me. Which was that you had to accept Christ as your personal savior, and that was the only way to connect with God. And so I spent a number of years in the Christian faith. I was a very hyper child. I came in with a very different type of energy. I call it the opposite of mainstream energy kids. I was not a very athletic child. I was more of a creative child, and that didn't fly very well because you had to be an athlete in elementary school to be a popular kid. And so I was relentlessly bullied, which was an amazing blessing because there was this one kid in particular that bullied me. This was my first huge spiritually transformative experience as a child. There was a child, I used to be a very small child. He was a very big kid, this particular individual that was bullying me. And he used to body check me into the lockers all the time. And he used to just make my life hell, you know. He was constantly bullying me. And the reason he was bullying me is very obvious because I was a very hyper child. I displayed very strange behaviors because I was very, very hyper. And he was what I call a mainstream energy kid, which is very popular. And he just has a normal, everyday mainstream energy. So I definitely came into this lifetime really not fitting in. And that was, I found out much later in my life, a real blessing. But when I was young, it was, of course, very, very challenging, very, very difficult. However, because I must have come in with, I've never been able to understand the concept of revenge. Heard about it, seen it in the movies. It's very alien and foreign to me. I don't quite understand this idea of making other people feel the pain that you are suffering. So I did not, I repeat, I did not stand up to this bully. What I did instead was I would go home every day and I'd cry and I'd say, Mom, Dad, I don't want to go to school. But my dad would be, you have to go to school to get a job one day. You can't quit. So I'd be very, very sad. I went home. Got one night, I just had the feeling to get down on my hands and knees and I started praying to God. And I said, God, I bless this child that's bullying. And I just pray that he has an amazing, wonderful life. And I just sent love and I sent blessings to him instead of standing up to him. For some reason, I had the idea to do this. It just came to me. Could be probably from the Christian faith, where Jesus says, one of the wonderful things of the Christian teaching is where Jesus says, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And he says, turn the other cheek. That really did resonate with me. The aspect of God being portrayed as an unconditionally loving God that always resonated. However, the idea that God is judgmental and he sends some people to hell just for simply not believing in him, that has never really resonated with me. So that's a big reason why I left that faith. So anyway, that being said, a miracle unfolded. Keep in mind, I did not go up to that child and say, I love you or anything like that. This is something I did privately, secretly at night in my home. Prayed, sent him love. And I said, Father, I send him love, I send him blessings. And I wasn't expecting he was going to change his behavior towards me or anything. This is just something I did, right? That night I went to sleep and I had a dream. And in the dream, this child was like a really good friend of mine. And I was so happy and we were friends. He wasn't bullying me. I was so happy. And then in the morning I woke up and I said, oh man, it was just a dream. And I was like kind of sad because it was like, man, it was just a dream, but it was so wonderful. We were friends. It was wonderful. So anyway, it was very interesting. I must have, or I did jump into a wonderful new timeline after that, because that day, this child that normally bullied me was kicking the soccer ball around. He kicked it a little too far, and it went up to me, and he said, "Hey, you want to come and play?" And after that, I tell you what, it was an absolute miracle. It was like he never had been a bully, that he had always been a very good friend to me. And from there on in, for several years that I knew him, until we departed ways in our lives, he was always a very, very wonderfully kind, gentle heart to me. And I'll never forget that. That made a huge impression on my life. I was like, wow, this unconditional love thing really works. I was sold on it from there on in. I was like, wow. sending love to those that mistreat us, that is powerful. That is the way to go. And that, yeah, that was the first spiritually transformative experience, I would say, that I had. I haven't had the classical near-death experiences, but I have had the close to death experiences a few times. So when I was, let's see, so I was a very happy child, other than the bullying. I was actually a very naturally happy, go lucky kind of child. That is my character. I tend to see the glass half full. That is my also me. So I'm very optimistic. Um, and these days, the more darkness I see in the world, the more optimistic I become, which is kind of interesting. Because I feel like light and dark, they're both one energy. I don't divide them like they do in the Christian faith. I see that light and dark are one, and we can't have the light without the darkness, and we can't have the darkness without the light. And I think it's this pushing away and dividing and separating of the two polarities that gets us into trouble. I really do. But if we can honor everything as one, everything is divine, then we can come back to our wholeness. And I believe that we are all whole, but I feel that it's just all covered up. Anyway, so when I was a child, I had an experience where I was electrocuted. I've had a few different experiences where it just seems like life said, you still got work to do. You ain't leaving yet. And I've had some experiences, but when I was about, let's see, well, when I was 4 years old, yeah, I was a very, very happy kid. I was very shocked though. When I was when I was 4 years old, a couple of things happened to me. One was that I was crawling on the floor. My parents were moving, and so they'd removed the stove from the wall, and there were these wires sticking out of the wall. And I guess I wasn't still completely walking, and I was crawling on the floor, and I was like, oh, those wires sticking out of the wall, that looks interesting. I wonder what it would feel like to grab those. That was kind of a mistake, because they hadn't disconnected the power yet, so I electrocuted myself. And I remember seeing blue, my hand turning blue in the middle, and I was screaming, and my dad ran up the stairs and they got me to the hospital, but I was fine. So I think that was a miracle, because if I would have kept holding on, I think I would have died there. So that was cool. That I survived. It's good. And then let's see, 2 separate attacks from vicious dogs as a child. So I guess the first one was when I was 4, and the second one was when I was 5. So it created a lifelong fear, or not anymore, but for a long time, scared of dogs. Because I was just a child, but I did something kind of silly. I took the bone away from my neighbor's dog, and the dog didn't really appreciate it very much. And because my head was a lot larger than the rest of my body as a child, you can imagine what part of my body the dog went after. So yes, I still have scars all over on my face from the experience, from both experiences. The second one was the next year. I went to kindergarten for one day, and that was, I believe, on a Friday. But on a Saturday or Saturday night, my parents were having tea and biscuits at a church neighbor's house, or church, someone in the church invited them. And I was outside playing with their son and his dog, and that German Shepherd overtook me. And once again, I repeated the same experience. Rushed to the hospital, stitches in my face. Back then, the stitches would stick out and there'd be little strings hanging, and then, kids would pick on those. So my parents said, okay, no kindergarten for you. So I went to kindergarten for one day when I was 5, and then I got to stay home for a whole year. And so I entered school a year late. So that was very traumatizing for me, with the dogs. And I was really shocked, because I thought, wow, that was my real first taste of polarity, or my real first taste of the world is a scary, frightening place, and you can get harmed and you can get hurt. I've since kind of amended my feeling about that. I don't feel the world is a frightening, scary place at all. In fact, I feel that we create our own subjective realities, and there are ways and means to keep ourselves safe, completely safe, actually. But at that time, I actually believed that the 3D world was completely solid and real. I now believe it's a real experience, but not a solid one. So anyways, moving forwards, let's see. So yeah, I just followed the Christian faith for the rest of my youth. But when I got into high school, I really only had one friend my whole childhood, which was a guy named Don, my neighbor. So I was not very popular just because of the fact that I was such a hyper kid and acted really weird and really, really strange. Now I see that as a blessing. I see that I came in with quite different energy from most, but I've never I've never felt I was special. I feel I'm unique, but I feel we're all special. I feel we're all equal. So I've never really, even though I was unique, I've never seen myself as better than anyone. I don't believe in hierarchies. I believe we're all individuations of the divine. And I believe that we're all at the highest level, we're equal in vibration. I don't see myself as higher vibration than anyone else, not at all. Um, I may be more aware than some, but that's okay. We're all on our life journey, and I used to be extremely unaware myself. So I just don't see any differences between anyone. As far as spirituality or religion, I think that we're all on journeys. We're all going back home. And I just really, really honor all the journeys that we're on. So let's see. I'm almost getting to the end of my story, but let's see. So I'm in high school. I actually started making friends in grade 11, grade 12. We moved to a new city and I got contact lenses and suddenly didn't have those thick, huge glasses that were 3 times bigger than my face anymore. And for some reason, suddenly I had lots of friends. They were friends in the church and they were wonderful people. We all had our own lockers, I guess. So we had our own group in high school. And so we were the ones that didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't curse. But there was a lot of really super popular kids in our church. So I don't know, we were just kind of accepted by even the non-Christian kids. I don't know, we just all kind of got along. And grade 11, grade 12 was wonderful. I was able to drop mathematics because I was never good at it, and I focused on drama and English and all the things that I love. Yeah, so grade 11, grade 12 were really quite nice. However, at that time, I began to go into a rebellious phase where I also wanted to hang out with the non-Christian kids. So I began to swear and never got into smoking, never got into drinking quite yet or drugs, but definitely telling dirty jokes, drinking all the stuff you weren't supposed to, not drinking, telling dirty jokes. I don't know. Just wanted to have non-Christian friends. So that was, I would go to parties. I wouldn't actually drink. I was still scared to drink alcohol at that point because I'd been heavily indoctrinated that there's consequences for anything you do that's outside the Christian faith. So I would just lie and say I was an alcoholic and I can't drink anymore. And then I just made a lie, and then I could hang out at the party with everybody and they wouldn't peer pressure me to drink. They just respected me and I just had a good time, right? So kind of did that whole thing. Um, Never really got into drinking much, but finally when I became a young adult, I got into the nightclub scene, started because I love dancing. It's one of my passions. So I used to go to the nightclub and there I would start drinking. But I just apparently in the past life, I was a raging alcoholic and died of in this one meditation I did. Who knows if it's true? But I learned something from it. In this meditation I did with Brian Weiss, Brian Weiss's meditation, past life regression, I saw that I died of alcoholism. So maybe I just like learned that lesson because in this life I can drink no problem socially. I don't do it anymore, but I used to, and I had no problem. I never had any real addiction to that. So, yeah, that was my high school life, just hanging out with friends, having fun. Um, then I became, in my young adult life, I'm 52 years old now. But when I was in my early 20s, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And this Korean wanted to become an English teacher. So I actually became an English as a second language teacher. I didn't get university, but I got certified as an ESL teacher. I lived in Japan, I lived in South Korea, and for about 9.5 years, I became an English teacher. Worked for one of the biggest colleges in Canada, Canadian College of English Language. I taught 26 different countries in that school, and I just absolutely loved it because I love cultures, and I had taken Tony Robbins, so I learned about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and I used it in my teaching to make the classes fun. And I called it edutainment, made them laugh and enjoy. And I really, really loved teaching English, but I don't know that I thought that that would be my whole life's path. But that's what I did at that time for about 9.5 years. I formed my own tutoring company. I tutored one-on-one. But I always had this dream. I always watched this guy named Tony Robbins. I was like, man, one day I want to do something like that. I want to be in self-development, personal development. Wasn't so much in the spiritual thing at first, but I really wanted to do personal development, self-development. So in about 2012, yes, 2012, just after my first huge awakening, actually, because my big awakening was in late 2011, I guess, just before 2012, which seems to be the case for a lot of people for some interesting reason. That was my huge awakening. I hooked up with Michael Lozier, who is trained, who is a law of attraction trainer coach, and he certified me in law of attraction teaching. And so I started doing workshops for a number of years, teaching law of attraction. So that was a lot of fun. So it's kind of gradually moving more towards the spiritual stuff and away from the personal development stuff. But let me tell you a little bit about my awakening. Let's see. So let me see here. I guess I started back in 2004. I started being very attracted to a guy named Wayne Dyer. I used to go into bookstores all the time, and I would notice all these spiritual books. And I'd be like, I'm not supposed to look at this stuff because I'm a Christian. You're only supposed to look at stuff that has to do directly with the Bible in our denomination. But I was so enticed by this guy named Wayne Dyer. And it was still about God, but it was about God being within you. And I started to be like, wow, I really want to check this out. So I bought a meditation called Getting in the Gap, where you do this mantra. You say, ah, ah is the effortless name of God. It's the only, the sound that you make without your lips, without your tongue. It's ah, and it's in the name Jehovah, Kali Durga, Ra, Krishna, Jehovah, Yahweh. Okay, so Ah, according to Wayne Dyer, was in the name of God in all the different languages. And I was so intrigued by this. It was like, wow, this is so interesting. So I started having a number of experiences where I would sit and manifest things. I would manifest money. I had an experience where I would sit and do the awe meditation, and Wayne Dyer would say that I could visualize or something like this, what I wanted to come. So I said, I'm going to give this a try. I remember I needed $200 at that time to pay a bill. So I sat and meditated using awe, and then within 24 hours, I got mail. I opened a mail. It was exactly 200 bucks. I'm like, wow, this shit works. This stuff really, really works. I'm like, you can actually manifest and create your own reality. This was before I was a law of attraction teacher in 2012. This was back in 2003, 2004. And then I started coming into contact with a guy named Dr. Jeffrey Thompson. and he is a guy that makes sound meditations. So I started using his sound meditations, and I've had the great pleasure of interviewing him on Soul Inspire podcast. So that was a real dream come true for me because he was one of the first people that helped me. So that was my first little mini waking up Satori. And then flash forward to oh, sorry, I went in and out of that for a while because I still was like, oh, but I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna go to hell. Because I was always taught that you could go to hell if you kind of get sidetracked from the Christian religion. And I was kind of getting into more spirituality and away from Christian religion. So for a while, I actually went back to the Christian religion because it was comfortable and familiar. But then ultimately, I just really felt like something's really missing here. This just doesn't resonate with me anymore. This idea that how can you have an unconditionally loving God on the one hand, but it also can roast people for all eternity in hell for just simply not believing. What about the little Buddhist grandmother who's a really good, loving person, but she's going to go to hell? And it's like, what about people that are gay? Like, I love gay people. I but I'm being told that they're wicked and all that. And I'm like, geez, it's just, this stuff just doesn't resonate anymore. So gradually it began to leave Christian faith behind. And so in 2011, late 2011, I was living with this wonderful woman and we had a wonderful relationship. Well, what I thought was a wonderful relationship. But she was going through issues in her own personal life that didn't really have anything to do with me, but she was really getting depressed. And I thought, man, I have compassion that she's depressed, but I don't want to lower my vibration to match that. So I would go out and meditate all the time and try to keep my vibration high. I was still wanted to be supportive of her, but I just also didn't want to be commiserating. That's very disempowering, right? Commiserating with people. You have compassion, but commiserating and I find it very disempowering for the other person. So I didn't want to commiserate with her. So I go out every day, I would meditate. But the problem is, as I meditated, her vibration began to get farther and farther apart. And you know what happens when you're in a relationship with someone and you begin to go on a different spiritual page from them, the gap between the vibrations becomes so excessive at some point they're just going to disappear from your life. And that's exactly what happened. She's like, I'm leaving. So I'm like, oh my God. So I was like, oh, I have such a tender heart. I really love this woman. So I thought, obviously it was conditional romantic love, but thought I was really in love. So it's like, oh my God, I don't want to feel the pain. I don't want to feel the pain. But I'm not the type to go to drugs and alcohol. Okay, what can I do? I remembered this book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, where he talks about going in and looking at the feeling. Where is this grief? Because it was grief. Someone leaves, you really love, it's like a death. So it's like I was grieving. So every day I would go meditate and I would go inside of my body. Must have been every day. I can't remember. I think it was. I would go inside and I would look, where is the grief feeling in my body? And I would just look at it without creating mental stories around it. I would look. Gradually, it would burn away. I was like, wow, this is powerful. And then I would look up and I would have some relief. I'd have a little bit of joy, but then it would come in waves. And then I would be grieving. And then I go in again. I would go into my body. I would look without making any mental stories. I kept doing this over and over till the grief literally turned into ecstasy. I kid you not. Like, I kid you not. So I was like, wow, wow. So that was my big awakening just before 2012. I was like, oh my God. So I don't need to even be in all the suffering anymore with the loss of this girlfriend. I can just live my life in joy right after she left. Because previously, when I would break up with women, it would take me sometimes years to get over it. I was like, wow, I got over it in like a couple of sessions of doing this, or something like that. And I remember I walked into a 7-Eleven. This guy goes, you look so happy. And I'm like, yeah, my girlfriend just left me. He was probably thinking, really? You must have not loved her very much. Well, no, I thought I loved her so much, but I was just in such ecstasy doing this meditation. So that was my big awakening. Then in 2012, I was certified as law of attraction, and I started doing that for a number of years. And then I don't know, flash forward, I'm almost done. I know I said I was almost done with my story before. I'm almost done. Flash forward to now, let's see, 2017. Let's go there. I had what you call a dark night of my first dark night of the soul, what you call a dark night of the soul, which I now see as resistance to just whatever's going on in life. But I had my dark night of the soul. I was in a situation where I was working as I'd really slid down. Vibrationally, and I got to the point where I was just working a minimum wage job. The law of attraction stuff, all that stuff was kind of like nothing was really working out for me anymore. I was very destabilized in my life vibrationally. And let's see what happened. I was working in Stanley Park, Canada. It's in Vancouver, BC, Canada, as I was writing parking tickets for people. Now, keep in mind, I was still using law of attraction even there because my coworkers were getting assaulted by people for writing parking tickets, and I was like sending love to everybody in the parking lot, and they were literally thanking me for writing them parking tickets. So I was still using some of the stuff that I knew. But I don't think I was fulfilled in that job. It was a very soul-sucking minimum wage. I was writing parking tickets for people, and my coworker, we had to use lasers sometimes for the license plates or to take pictures of the license plates when we write these tickets. And my coworker was fooling around and he struck me almost in the eyes with the laser. It actually just missed my eye, but I didn't know that. I went into intense panic and fear. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to go blind. I was so terrified that I was going to go blind. My sight is actually okay, but I overreacted. I mean, okay, other than I have to wear contact lenses, right? But it's fairly okay. So anyway, they shot this laser at me. I freaked out. I went into fight or flight 24/7. I was so terrified that I would go blind, that my immune system dropped. Possibly the shingles virus entered, and I began to get electric shocks in my teeth. And this happened, it took 7 years to heal almost all of my nerves. They're pretty much all healed now as of the moment that I talk, but it took about 7 years to heal because I got something called trigeminal neuralgia. That's called the suicide disease if you look it up because the nerve pain is so intense that people often take their own life. So I lost everything. I lost my job. I lost absolutely everything with this trigeminal neuralgia. So I was forced to move back in with my father. How humbling is that? At about 48 years of age, something like that, or 47, I don't know. That was like 2017. I'm not good at math. You do the math. I don't know. It was a little while ago, 7 years ago or something. No, 2017, 2018, 2017, I guess. I moved back in with my dad and he became my caretaker till I would get, and so I was bedridden for about 2 years. Then I started getting panic attacks because I was afraid. I didn't know when the shock would come in because it would strike me in the teeth. Went to the dentist. The dentist is like, no, can't find the problem. Go back to the doctor. Doctor's like, it looks like you have trigeminal neuralgia. Gave me some really intense medication, which causes you to turn into a zombie. I said, no, I'm just going to suffer. I'm just going to go through the pain. So I just went through the pain, but I became panicked with these panic attacks because I was afraid when this shock would strike me. I was so terrified. And so it created this panic and I started to experience panic attacks all day long, 8 hours straight or whatever, like panic attacks constantly. It was like, oh my God. So this is my dark night of the soul. So I really began to turn inward and I began to watch a lot of Michael Bernard Beckwith, who I love, the Agape International Church, which is a spiritual new thought church. And that was really helping me. And I was just basically the gift of trigeminal neuralgia was that it caused me to turn inward because I lost all the external pleasures for the most part. I lost almost everything. So I was forced to turn inward, but I was really resisting that physical pain. And as a result, I created this dark night of the soul. And it got so to the point with the panic attacks all day long, every day. It got to the point where I was like, what the heck? What do I do? I'm just like, I can't do nothing here. God help me. And it felt like the complete disconnection from source. Felt like the complete disconnection from source. So that was interesting. So I gradually, then 2020 came along, and then things in the world were very intense at that time. So I went into even more panic and more. But as a result of that whole experience, I began to be able to stabilize my vibration. The nerves began to heal themselves, and I began to learn how to be open to the physical pain instead of closed. And my bandwidth to handle physical pain has really increased so that I can be relaxed. You know, I'm not perfect, but I can be a lot more relaxed when it happens. I learned that if I send love to the panic attack, it stops, which was very interesting. It's like, what? It's like it actually stopped. I started balancing my chakras. I learned how to, I asked my spirit guides or source, something like that, can you please give me a dream to show me how to get out of this whole thing? And they said, tap on each point in your body. And I did that and it worked. It balanced my chakras, the 7 chakras. Um, I just, yeah, I just started getting more peace in my life. I started meditating a lot more, got to the point where meditation became a way of life, where I was in a constant meditative state 24/7, which was very interesting. Um, the shock settled down. The panic attacks, I would send love to the attack. I would say, welcome panic attack as soon as it started, because I get it in the chest. Everybody's different. I would get it in the chest. The chest would start getting tight. I'd say, welcome, intensify, leave, or stay. I love you. I love you. And whenever I've said that, the panic attack stops instantly. Instantly. I'm not saying it's going to work for everyone, but it works for me. Please go see a psychiatrist or psychologist or whatever if you have to. Full disclaimer, I'm just telling you what worked for me. I'm not saying it'll work for you, but it sure worked for me, where I just stay open, send love. So the panic attacks are pretty much gone now. I'm thriving. My business is thriving. My YouTube channel is thriving. Like, things have really come full circle, and I'm very happy because I've gotten back into the teachings of Abraham Hicks. And which is very simple teachings. It's just live in alignment with your true nature, which is joy. And I just seek joy in every moment of the day. And by doing that, I find that my world reflects back to me my inner state. So that's my big teaching. So just to wrap things up then, that's my story. I'm an emotion code practitioner, but Betty, you can ask me questions about
Yeah,
that.
thanks so much for sharing, Dale. And I think that it's so hopeful to kind of hear the adversity and then to find out that you've overcome. And I think that that's super, super incredible. Thank you so much for your willingness to come and share. And yeah,
Thank you.
I'm just wondering if you could tell the audience a little bit about what emotion code is.
Yeah, emotion code was developed by a guy named a chiropractor actually in the United States. His name is Dr. Bradley Nelson. And there's a book even out there called The Emotion Code that you can buy that explains what it is. Um, people can learn to do emotion code on themselves, but I find that it doesn't really work as well as if you get someone to do it for you, because people seem to be very attached to their stuff, right? So what emotion code does is, it's the idea that anytime you've been traumatized in your life, you get what's called a ball of trapped negative energy, and that ball gets lodged somewhere in your body system. And this can happen not only from trauma that you experience. For example, I had the dog trauma. I had, different traumas, the bullying, the abandonment issue with my mom, these types of things. they actually stay with you. And then they really keep your vibration low. So if you want your vibration high, you can be liberated. You can liberate your vibration. It's kind of like a cork. You know how, Betty, when you push down a cork, when you take your hands off, the cork pops up to the top? That's the same thing with emotion code. Emotion code really liberates you from this stuck energy. So what I do is I deal with clients, anyone that has a stuck area in their life, I can get that energy moving again and get the shift happening for them. So one of my specialties is I recently had a woman come to me that said, Dale, um, I don't even know how to put money in my gas. Like, I don't even know where the money's going to come from to put money in my gas tank. I said, okay, let's work on financial flow. You've got some blocks around money. I worked with her. I did a package of sessions with her. I think I did a couple packages with her because it does take time. It doesn't happen in one session. But she then received a huge divorce settlement that she wasn't expecting, worth tens of thousands of dollars. She now has enough money to live for 2 years without working. And that's just one example of many examples. What gets me excited is the miracles that I'm seeing with my clients. Um, Pretty much everyone I've ever worked with, as long as they're open, they do get results. So for example, someone that has, they can't seem to get love, they can't seem to attract a good romantic partner. Motion code works really, really well for that. Any area that you feel stuck in, I go in. This is the opposite of Reiki. I don't send any energy to you. I remove the negative energy from you. And by removing it, your vibration then ascends, and then you can attract better relationships, better financial situations, just a better life overall. And the whole idea is the heart wall. That's the biggest feature. Have you heard of this, Betty, the heart wall? So that's the biggest feature. So of emotion code is that almost everybody has what's called a heart wall, which is a symbolic representation of uh, layers and layers of trapped emotions stuck around your heart that's covering up your heart, covering up your heart center. So my teaching is that there's the mind and there's the heart. Most people are living up here, they're living in the mind. And as long as you live in the mind, you're living in fear, you're living in fight or flight, you're living in perceived danger and threat all around you. In the heart, you're living in safety, you're living in love. What emotion code helps you to do is to ground into the centerness of your being and fall from the head into the heart. Then the head comes into submission to the heart. And I tell my clients, I don't want you to work on yourself. I don't want you to become a don't try to be a better person and all that. That's okay if you want to do that, but that's limited. You're already whole, you're already perfect and complete, but you have a heart wall. Let me help you remove the heart wall, and then automatically you'll be a better person. Because once the heart wall is removed, you realize that you always were loving. You always were kind. You always were just abundant. You feel that abundance. It's just that all of that's covered up by this heart wall. Step by step, we remove layer after layer. Only do a few layers per session because it can be too overwhelming for people. So that's why we have to buy a package of sessions where I help people gradually release the heart wall. And then the miracles happen because the physical reality begins to catch up to the vibrational. Because first we got to change our vibration, then the outer. We're always trying to fix the outer reality first. I teach people fix the vibration first, and the outer reality will mirror back to you whatever vibration you're putting out. So that's what happens with this. We remove the heart wall, and then the heart is responsible for every area of your life, your health, your wealth, your relationships. Everything is connected to the heart. Once the heart wall is cleared, you can really begin to live. So that's what I do with emotion code.
Well, sign me up. Sounds awesome. Thanks
It's
so
fun.
much for sharing that.
You're
I
welcome.
really enjoyed getting to know you on a deeper level. I think it's so amazing that you've created conscious space on your podcast for people to share openly about their spiritual experiences. I have really felt honored to give you space as a podcast host to share about your own spiritual experiences. And I just want to see if there's anything else that you'd like to share and leave the audience with to feel more complete about our time together.
The only thing I want to share is to say that it appears that we're living in a very tumultuous time in this reality. It's seen in the 3D. I'm about to launch a new course that people can go to dalecross.net. They can sign up for this free course. And in this free course, it's called Activate Your 5D Heart in the 3D. And what this course teaches you to do is it teaches you to slide from your head into your heart. It teaches you how to ground the 5D. Living from your heart can then bring the 5D down to earth. There's 8 billion different earths. Okay, each soul on this planet has their own subjective reality within the collective consciousness. They have their own subjective reality. That's your safe place. You create your own reality. But in order to create your reality of safety, you need to withdraw your attention, energy, and focus from all the stuff going on in the collective. Because when you put your energy, attention, and focus on that, on the negative stuff, that's going to be your reality. You're going to go on the descending timeline. There's two timelines on Earth right now. There's an ascending and a descending. If you want to go on the ascending or the upward one, withdraw your attention, energy, and focus on what's going on in the collective and just focus on being in joy and being in unconditional love. And that's where your safety is. So feel free, anyone that you want to take this course, come to dalecross.net, sign up and take the free course, activate your 5D heart into 3D. The only thing I want to tell everybody is just come into alignment. If there's only one spiritual practice I tell people to do, live in alignment with your true nature, which is joy. Find joy in every moment. It's as simple as that.
Really well said. Thank you so much, Dale. And all of your information will be in the liner notes of this episode. People can click and get right to you. And thank you again. We'll see you next time.
See you next time. Thanks, Betty.